to a Brawl Network production. This is a podcast for the best fans in the NFL.
Are you in the mafia?
Am I in the what?
It's time for a Bills Brawl podcast.
Second down and 7, Kelly with the tie. Touchdown! Allen. Deep shot. Touchdown! On the line to Stephon Diggs. And Thurman breaking tackles at the 22. Inside the 10. Touchdown, Buffalo.
Another edition to the Bills Brawl, all a part of the Brawl Network. Get us on Twitter at Bills Brawl and at Brawl, at Network Brawl, that is, and me for my personal handle, at Mike L. Sports. This episode is actually just going to be me from start to finish, man. Mike Lindsley with you. You can also hit me all over the social media platforms for other Buffalo Bills coverage, 1-minute video segments, 9-minute segments, and more. You'll see a lot of cross-promotion with the ML Sports Platter, which is also on the Brawl Network, and a bunch of the other social channels as well. So appreciate you kind of hunkering down and tightening up the the seatbelt here, because it's been a really, I think, just an unbelievable offseason totally in the NFL. And I think for the Buffalo Bills, I'm going to basically be, as I mentioned, it's just going to be me solo. I'm going to break down each and every one of the draft picks the Bills got in this draft, and kind of, upside and the fit and, different things in terms of where they could be in 2021, 2022, etc. So really hoping to have some fun with you here, and definitely hit me with some feedback again at those handles, at Bills Brawl, at Network Brawl, and at Mike L. Sports. Let's start right away with the first pick. I mean, I think the Bills got a major talent. I know he sat out with Corona last year and all the rest, but Greg Rousseau's a stud. I mean, he's a 6'7", 266-pound guy. And again, I realize that all of this is a crapshoot. It's the NFL draft. We don't know how guys are going to end up. Could they be out of the league in a couple of years? Could they be going to the Hall of Fame? A lot of it's a crapshoot, there's no doubt. A lot of it has to do with fit, scheme, coaching, player commitment, injuries. I mean, there's so many factors. And we focus a lot on the quarterback position with that, but really it's all positions. It's just that the quarterback position is the most important one in the NFL. But all the positions are equally similar in that case. You just pretty much don't know. Unless you have a Chase Young, a Peyton Manning, a Charles Woodson, those kind of knock it out, Andrew Luck, knock it out of the park. No doubt about it, they're going to go right into the league and be Julio Jones and be studs. You don't know. Greg Rousseau, though, this is a great pick for the Bills. I've used the word blend for him. He's got a blend of size and speed and length and hands, and he's a wicked nightmare matchup for interior offensive linemen who just aren't as fast as him. He kicks inside of the rush in terms of getting to the passer. And he's got really all the tools as well to continue to develop. I mean, when you look at what he's got from a football standpoint, it's unbelievable. This guy is chiseled beyond chiseled. He's got strength. He kept up that strength and conditioning in the Corona opt-out, of course. You just look at it and you blend it all together, right? You blend the speed, you blend the size, you blend the length, you blend the football intangibles. You blend the hands and the footwork. I mean, he really got it all, and he's going to be able to press blockers off of his frame, and he's going to be able to make plays in the run game too. And I think there's another thing here with this type of player for the Bills. I mean, he's a prototypical modern-day NFL edge rusher. 6'7", a little bit taller, 266, a little bit less in terms of the weight. I love this pick. I absolutely love this pick. I think the Bills probably actually got, at least on paper, going into the league, a mid first round or higher type of talent here. You see that a lot. You hear that a lot when teams get a guy. You're like, oh, they got a first rounder. A good example of that would be Elijah Moore for the New York Jets, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss in the second round. I thought he was taken and stolen by the Jets. I think he's a first-round talent. Sometimes on paper, the way it looks, etc. Allen Robinson was like that. I thought coming out of Penn State in that crazy great receiver class from a few years back, he was picked lower, but he was probably an upper echelon, mid-first round, upper first-round talent, just taken later, and was pretty much a steal. The Bills also have a great opportunity here because Russo can help you. I think he's going to compete in the short term and in the long term. And, you're going to have maybe Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes coming off the books, after 2021. Bills had a lot of pressure, as we know, generating heat on the quarterback, especially in the AFC title game. They're hoping Russo can help them do that short term and long term. And of course, I think he fits perfectly into the Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier defense as well. All right, let's dive into the rest of the picks for the Bills. And, Brandon Beane, man, there was a lot of talk in that first round with Travis Etienne, Todd McShay, ESPN, mock draft, all that. And, Brandon Beane was probably just laughing at McShay and laughing at the fans and laughing at the Twitter polls and laughing at all of that. I don't even know if he paid attention to a lot of it. A lot of guys like Brandon Beane who have unbelievable success, they just ignore the noise. I mean, let's be honest. Beane and McDermott ignore the noise, and that's why a lot of this regime, it's why the success has come to them, right? Well, the Bills were not satisfied with just Gregory Rousseau out of Miami, right? They weren't. They went out and got another pass rusher. Another guy. And I think, actually, the potential for Boogie Basham is greater than Rousseau. I do. I think that we could have something really, really big here because he's a little bit more powerful, and he's got those violent hands just swinging and can literally dart, and he can either go around someone or he can push someone over. Great speed, tracks the quarterback. I like him too because, again, 6'3", a little bit taller, 274, a little bit lighter, just like Rousseau, the prototypical D-end that I've talked about here. He's really, really great at getting his hands up. And I feel like in football, defensive linemen, defensive, tackles and edge rushers, one thing that guys can always do that doesn't take a ton of work, when the quarterback's going to throw, hey, he might fake you out once in a while, but put your hands up more, right? It's like on defense in basketball. Get your hands up. There's a reason why, it sounds stupid and simple, but, I mean, it works. When you put hands up, you're clogging lanes. You're making people, not be able to see everything quite clearly. Think about, as a golfer, would you rather hit into the sun or not hit into the sun, right? And so Basham does a great job there. And Brandon Beane watched Tampa Bay win the Super Bowl, harass Patty Mahomes, and he went right for the jugular, right for the need, right, and both of these guys, it's short-term and long-term across the board. They check boxes across the board. Short-term, competing for spots, which Brandon Beane and McDermott, they love that. They create competition at every position on the roster. You have a situation going on as well with the long term because of Jerry Hughes and Addison probably off the books after this year. I actually happen to think, unless those guys take significantly less money, I think Hughes and Addison and Star Lotulelei will all be off the books after 2021. So you've got short term, you have long term, both of those boxes checked. You needed edge rusher, check the box. You wanted these guys. They weren't just needs, but they were wants. And then you check the boxes as far as every possible thing you could ever imagine as far as fit, scheme, and all the rest. So I just think it's going to be great. I mean, Basham recorded 20.5 sacks in his career, and he's got that high motor, and I think he could be really, really good. Interior pass rusher alongside defensive tackle Ed Oliver. Could you imagine if Ed Oliver takes that next step for the Buffalo Bills, and you have Basham and or Rousseau develop quickly? Man alive. That's the Bills, that's what they need, and really they need it more for the short term because this window in the NFL is only open a certain amount of time. But I love both of those. The edge rush is something the Bills desperately needed. They go out and they get Spencer Brown, an offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, in the third round. And, look, you got to win in the trenches. You got to win with edge rushing. You got to win protecting your franchise quarterback in Josh Allen. I love this pick too. He's got quickness, length, foot speed, range, blocks for the run, blocks for the pass. He never stops until the whistle blows. And he just is really, really a sound player. He does struggle a little bit with speed to the power and quick inside moves. And we saw that a little bit in the Senior Bowl. But the Bills like this guy, and he's from Northern Iowa. Some people might come at, Spencer Brown and go, he didn't play anybody. He didn't play anybody. And I tell you, it doesn't matter if you play people in college or not. It just doesn't. If you're good, you're good. That's it. Might have heard of a guy named Walter Payton who went to Jackson State. Mississippi Valley State is where Jerry Rice went. Terry Bradshaw went to Louisiana Tech. Go look at a lot of the North Texas State, Mean Joe Green. Those are just a few of the examples. I could go all day. 6'8", 311 pounds, potential swing tackle, versatile, can help fill the role of Ty Nsekhe, going in free agency. I think Brown will be a developmental guy. I don't think you can just plug him in immediately. But I don't think Buffalo will need him to contribute right away because you've got Deion Dawkins, you've got Darrell Williams. They're locked up for at least 3 seasons. And if he develops, though, the Bills, have really a great future, kind of a crystal ball thing here and a quick plug-and-play because he gives Buffalo a potential out from Williams' contract if the cap space gets to be a problem as well. I mean, the Bills are going to have to start really, really maneuvering that big time. I mean, they've already started, but it's going to start big time. It's going to go up another level is what I'm trying to say as far as the salary cap, with the Josh Allen contract coming up. And I know they picked up his option and all that, but, reality is it's going to get tighter and tighter. The NFL, the NFL cap situation doesn't mess around. It doesn't wait for anybody. That's all there is to it. And the Bills are going to find out real quick about that. Tommy Doyle, Miami of Ohio offensive tackle. How about the Bills going edge rusher, offensive tackle, and Doyle's going to be exactly, I think, what Spencer Brown is going to be for the Buffalo Bills. Starting experience, really good technique, great fundamentals, strong punch, long arms, foot speed, all that stuff. They're really hoping that he can be, the footwork's a little inconsistent, and guys can blow by him, but the Miami of Ohio product, again, long-term for the Bills, looking down the pike a little bit. 2022, what happens with the offensive line? There's a chance Cody Ford doesn't work out. There's a chance you got to cut Darrell Williams, right? There's a chance you have to cut Mitch Morse and make John Feliciano your center. And, it's one of those things where you got to look at it from that standpoint. And I think it's smart for the Buffalo Bills to do what they're doing with getting more depth pieces for the offensive line when you consider the current team and production and what could happen with or without that production, how it relates to the salary cap. Marquez Stevenson could be the steal of this draft for the Buffalo Bills. Could be. Phenomenal big play guy. Kickoff returner with a second gear. He can get behind coverage, pull away, sees a seam. He's a blow. I mean, he sees the hole, and he's gone. I mean, that's really what the Bills have here. What's really good, too, about this is the Bills are looking pretty much to Stevenson as maybe a little bit of a short term here, but also long term. I mean, Andre Roberts was a little too pricey for Buffalo. And I think in this particular spot, Isaiah McKenzie, again, the Bills creating competition at the punt returner, kick returner spots. And I think with Buffalo, you've got Isaiah McKenzie, who he said it all off season in shows, addressing the media, etc., that, he wants to return kicks, return punts, and he wants to be, a major part of the offense with Josh Allen and Brian Dable catching passes in the slot and maybe moving him around a little bit as well. Stevenson could be a long-term answer when Cole Beasley comes off the books. If he can go right into, and again, nothing's a guarantee, but that's what the long-term vision is here, possibly for the Bills. He's not really a polished route runner, but he has great upside. He really does. Inconsistent hands, frame a little shaky, 5'10", 180. Can't really go out and get a lot of those 50-50 balls outside the boundary. Therefore, plug and play right into the slot position perhaps here in the future for Cole Beasley when he departs Buffalo. So, really good pick. Creates some competition short-term on special teams with returning kicks and punt returns as well. And then a long-term possible solution for Cole Beasley coming off the books as well. Meanwhile, Damar Hamlin out of Pittsburgh, a safety. The Bills have eventually got to look at this position because Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, I know they just restructured and extended all the rest, but they've got to start, again, looking at a couple of years down the line, and the cap is not going to probably be favorable 2 years from now as well. And, 2-3 years, 2022, 2023, the NFL is used for short-term and long-term. There is a lot of immediate impact that you need compared to most of the NBA picks, where the NBA is a potential type draft for that professional sport. Well, with the Bills and with the NFL, it's not quite like that for the majority. I think it's probably a split, if not 60-40, in terms of being in favor to help you right away, and then 40%, to help you long term. And I say that because of two reasons: salary cap and injuries. I mean, those are the two big things in the NFL. And so the Bills are looking perhaps at a 2022 competition, 2023, more depth, a guy who maybe can rotate into the third down situation, scheme, etc. Damar Hamlin fits a lot of what they want to do. 6'1", 200, good size. He's got instinct, long arms. They love those traits as far as their secondary goes, and really does a great job of keeping everything in front of him and limiting the production after the catch. We know the Bills have had trouble not just rushing the passer, but from that issue, a lot of balls get completed, and then therefore, they also get a lot of yak against the Bills, offenses do, and it's important that the Bills start to shore up some tackling and starting to keep, things in front of them. Poyer and Hyde do a pretty good job of that. Hamlin comes from that school as well. So that's a big thing. Opportunistic, competitive, and can hopefully help stop the run and can do some upside type things. Can do some things and has a lot of upside on special teams. So I think it's going to be a really good pick for the Bills. Another one that I think they see the future, and I think the Bills are going to really like this guy. I think Hamlin, he's an easy-to-coach kid. You read the scouting reports. Coaches loved him at Pittsburgh, so I think it's going to be a big one for the Bills. Another good one. I mean, I think the Bills had a pretty good draft, B plus-ish, if you're grading it. Rashad Wildgoose, a cornerback out of Wisconsin. Again, Power 5, played on the big stage. Not that you have to have the great competition of the big stage, but it doesn't hurt. You play at Camp Randall. You're playing in front of 80,000 wackos every Saturday, again, under normal circumstances. This is another, I think, twofold pick for the Bills. Creates competition, number one. And number two, it's a long-term deal to fit in 2022 and beyond if Taron Johnson isn't there. Taron Johnson was benched last year by the Bills. Taron Johnson was a guy who the coaches stuck with, and look what he did. Huge interception against Pittsburgh, return it to the house in the regular season. And then he had that unbelievable pick six in the playoffs against Baltimore for over 100 yards out of the end zone with that great read. I mean, just a phenomenal read. I mean, Andrews looking the one way, thinking he's going to get six, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Johnson comes in and just pops in and gets the interception. Who knows if he'll be there after 2021. If he has another really good year, he could go, possibly get a huge contract down the line. And Taron Johnson, again, this is the NFL, man. He was a 4th-round pick out of Weber State, right? Small school, developmental player, a guy who the Bills saw to produce 2 years down the line. That's exactly what happened with Taron Johnson, right? They had to go through some growing pains with him. They had to figure out who else could have been, at the position as far as nickel corner goes. Johnson, eventually becomes that starting nickel. Bango, week 14 against the Steelers. Returns at 51 yards from, off of Ben Roethlisberger, 26-15 win. And then the 101-yard return of the pick 6 in the playoffs. It was basically the play of the playoffs for the Bills. Was arguably the play of the playoffs, arguably the play of the regular season, arguably the play of the year in the entire NFL. So, these are the picks. And so when you go back to it, you think about that 18 draft, you're like, wow, that worked out exactly how they had hoped. Taron Johnson making those plays. Could Rashad Wildgoose, could he make that play in 2023? That's what the Bills are looking at here with Rashad Wildgoose and looking at with this team long term. I don't know much about Texas Tech offensive guard Jack Anderson. I really don't. What I do know, though, is I think he can be a really, really productive guy as far as the fundamentals go and a run blocker. He's a position guy. He has a lot of work, though, that needs to be done. He doesn't have great change of direction, doesn't have, great hands and footwork, but he does have a pretty solid punch. And he's more of a run protection guy. Fundamentally sound there. Technique is better there. When it comes to the pass protection, struggles overall. Does have better hands in the pass protect and effort and motor there. But in order for it to all come together, probably a couple of years down the line, the Bills also look at him too. Look, he played at center the week of the Senior Bowl, and he's improved and progressed ever since. Could he be a guy who the Bills, look at his versatility and say, hey, wait a minute now, give me some of that. Give me some of that versatility maybe down the line. He could be, a player who can, help us out at the center position as well. Maybe he could be a backup center. So all things on the table. Overall, I think the Bills, a B+-ish draft. They didn't do anything wildly sexy. They didn't do anything awful. And really, for the former, they didn't have to do anything really sexy. Why? Because their roster is pretty much in place. They've got pretty much everything going into 2021 that they need. Their offensive line is shored up. They're bringing the band back together. They're bringing back Milano, Feliciano, Williams. They're bringing back Levi Wallace. They're bringing back a ton of guys. And they have wiggle room. They can play around. They can cut people after 2021 if they need to. Would they cut a Darrell Williams and a Mitch Morse if, one of these guys like a Spencer Brown ends up competing and doing unbelievable things in camp, creating even more competition, and therefore you've got competition at the tackle positions, and that helps even more for your cap cutting and all the rest. That could be a possibility. Is there a situation in a year where Taron Johnson, you can't pay him, see you later, bango, Wild Goose is right in there? Because John Feliciano goes into the center position, do you need more help at guard and a backup guard? Is Jack Anderson then ready at 2022, 2023 at those points to help out, right? Marquez Stevenson, could he be that much of a developmental guy, wide receiver, etc., in the slot and all the rest? That's going to be something to watch as well. So overall, I think the Bills checked a ton of boxes in this draft. Short-term, long-term, competition, fundamental guys, scheme, fit, guys who can be coached, nice blend of small school, big school, and I think you've got some bona fide potential stars, which we know is a big thing in the NFL draft. Is this a diamond in the rough? Looking back a couple of years, guys who can help you and make a play in a couple of years, being a starter, you can commit to guys. Guys are going to go through growing pains at every position in the NFL. stay with him, start him, give him that confidence, coach him up. That's exactly what happened with Taron Johnson. That's exactly what the Bills see happening perhaps here with Rashad Wild Goose. You've got really, really good stuff here. You got versatility here. And again, bona fide potential stars in this league. I look right out of the gate with the first 3 picks. Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham, Spencer Brown. A lot of these other guys could do it too. It's all a crapshoot. We don't know. But looking at it with the ability, what they've done at the collegiate level, and how they can immediately go in and fit and compete short-term and long-term, I think Rousseau, Basham, and Brown, and even to an extent Stevenson, with his ability in terms of burst and seeing a hole, helping on special teams and depth on offense, I think the Bills have got some guys here. I really do. And I think a couple years down the line, we're going to be talking about a couple of these players making a major impact on the Buffalo Bills roster. So they go Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham, Spencer Brown, Tommy Doyle, Stevenson, Marcus Stevenson, DeMar Hamlin, Rashad Wild Goose, and Jack Anderson, all out of the schools of Miami, Wake Forest, Northern Iowa, Miami of Ohio, Houston, Pittsburgh, Wisconsin, and Texas Tech. I'm Mike Lindsley. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Bills Brawl. Hit us on Twitter at Bills Brawl and at Network Brawl. My personal handle is at Mike L Sports. And as I always tell you, enjoy the games.